Hey, this is Josh Shernoff from So Says Shernoff on Fite TV, the Mind of the Meanie podcast with the Blue Meanie, and of course, the RetroMania video game. And you are watching Saved by the Buzzer with Dan and Bill.
Hey everyone, welcome to a bonus special edition of Saved by the Buzzer. I am your host, Dan, also known as Dad Collector from Coolie Collector. It's an influencer site on Instagram and YouTube. And I'm also known as, I know I have a lot of AKAs, but also known as former owner of Spry Wrestling. And I'm not here alone. Each and every week, I am joined by my brother, the host with the most information, my brother, Bill.
Thanks, Dan. I'm pretty sure you guys must know us by now if you've been listening for the past two episodes. We're live across all social media platforms. Make sure you follow us and subscribe at By the Buzzer Pod. That's across the board. So give us a follow and give us some support. Let's just start with a tradition, Dan. What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I'm sticking with beer. So I'm not going too hard this time. It's Rolling Rock. I know you introduced it to me last summer. It's a little bit stronger than Coors Light, but it's still really smooth. I like drinking Coors Light, but now I have something else to put in the fridge. So this is another nice smooth taste to enjoy while we talk for the next half an hour. What about you, buddy?
That's got to be my favorite one, the Rolling Rock.
Yeah.
I think you said it perfectly. It's a stronger Coors Light. I mean, if you like Coors Light, then try Rolling Rock, and I think you'll like it too. Today, I'm sticking with bourbon again, but I got a little bourbon and Coke. I got a mixture going. So, again, the juice is flowing, so we could talk about a little Fastlane coming up, talk about the WWE, because there's a lot of things going on. So why don't you start, buddy?
With Fastlane, I know last week we talked about the big epic explosion in AEW and how I kind of threw them under the bus where I didn't enjoy it too much. So don't worry, wrestling fans out there, because we are probably going to throw a little bit of Fastlane under the bus. It was not for a pay-per-view. I don't know. It's like for a pay-per-view that's going into WrestleMania, I think you expect a little bit more. Coming out of that pay-per-view, the only thing that's really memorable, I know you can't really do a lot of title changes leading into WrestleMania, but the only thing I really remember is the Fiend returning and the match between Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan, because they definitely did bring it. The rest, honestly, everybody gave it their all, but to me, I'm looking forward to WrestleMania, and now Fastlane, let's just put it behind us. Obviously for the pod, we got to talk about it. But it's just, to me, was not a memorable pay-per-view. And I don't know, Braun Strowman and Elias, that comes to mind because I got to crap all over that. Why are they continually doing this to Elias? He deserves better. Braun Strowman, I guess they can't really find much for him to do. The match with him and Shane McMahon that they're building towards at WrestleMania, Shane is crazy. Braun can throw him around a whole bunch of times. It's probably going to be enjoyable to watch, but we didn't even predict it on our predictions. That's how forgettable this kind of match was. I don't know. What do you think with the overall pay-per-view, Bill?
I thought it was just okay. I mean, the Roman Reigns and the Daniel Bryan match, it was probably the best match of the night, I'd say, and it should be as your main event. I kind of liked how they incorporated, Edge ringside. I guess they're setting up the match at WrestleMania with him. But I thought that was cool how, Edge stepped in and was the ref. That was a little bit of a different take to it. So I like to see the WWE do that, from time to time, instead of just keeping it, sometimes it just seems stale.
Yeah.
But, overall, it was an okay pay-per-view. And like you said in the past, you always use the word transitional. So when you're talking about, you know, the Miz, how he was a transitional WWE champion for Bobby Lashley to turn into the actual main WWE champion, this was a transitional pay-per-view into, you know, WrestleMania. And it was almost like a filler. Like I would call it as a filler pay-per-view. But, you know, there were a couple strong points, like how you mentioned in your introduction there.
Yeah.
I really like Bianca Belair and what, you know, Sasha Banks, you know, I kind of like that little thing going on with Baszler and Nia Jax, but other than that, like I didn't see too much too much excitement. Like, you know, they got Shinsuke and Rollins, like, okay, like they're setting up Cesaro and Rollins, I guess, but you know, it just kind of seems like those matches are being too forced, in my opinion. But that Rollins and Shinsuke match was not too bad. Like I thought that was a pretty good match.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because I totally forgot about that match in the moment. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's kind of like the Fastlane was a Raw and SmackDown Plus show or Super Show. Like it was something that you could just watch on TV without really paying for it. I know now they're switching over to Peacock and no more USA or no more WWE Network in the US. So I don't know. It's just like you said, what I usually say is it's a transitional pay-per-view. When you kind of look back at the results, you kind of remember what happened, but it's just overall a forgetful event. Big E and Apollo Crews, I think in our predictions, I was wrong. I wanted Crews to go over. Only, like, obviously, I love Big E and I want him to continue to be the Intercontinental Champion and just to build that championship belt up a little bit. Like, you know, he's got a great singles run, but I would have liked for this one pay-per-view to have that, to give it to Apollo Crews, and then Big E can have the big moment at WrestleMania where he regains the championship belt. Another important thing was like the theatrics of the Fiend coming back. I mean, it looked like Toxic Avenger. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But it was cool to see him come back. It was very predictable. I think everybody said he was coming back. We got bonus points in our prediction for both of us saying he's coming back. And the Sasha Banks, yeah, I am enjoying that program. I honestly think a lot of this, what we're going to be talking about, should just bleed into WrestleMania talk, because now all the fans are talking about Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, and they're petitioning, and they want, I don't know if you heard this, but they want them to main event the first night of WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is a 2-night event on April 10th and 11th. And I'm all for it. It'd be two Black women that are just at the top of the WWE, at the top of their game. And if they headline, they're on the first night. So it's already confirmed that they're on that first night with, I think, Drew McIntyre and Lashley. Why not put the women at the top? You had it a couple of years ago where Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch headlined WrestleMania. Now put Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks on night one as the main event. Night two, you're going with Roman Reigns and Edge. So I'm all for that. The tag match, I don't know. I know you picked Belair and Sasha Banks to win. I just didn't see the tag team titles in the WWE are just like, there's no teams. They're just pairing these ladies up left, right, and center. And when actual teams, legitimate teams, you know, come into the system and come onto Raw and SmackDown, when they're breaking those teams up and then pairing the girls with other tag teams, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why would you break up good pairings and good tag teams? And now, I don't know, you have 4 or 5 different makeshift teams. To me, it doesn't make sense. So that's why I went with Nia Jax. It would have been interesting if Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair won the titles, and then they're going into WrestleMania together. But I think this was a better way where they lost, and then there was a little bit of heat where Sasha didn't like how they lost, and then that kind of like angered her, and they sparked, now they're not really friendly going into WrestleMania. Now there's like that spark and that heat. One wants to win more, or they both want to win, and now they lost the pay-per-view before WrestleMania leading into their match, so they got to prove to one another who's the better of the two. And then I think, do you want to roll into the main event, or do you want to discuss anything else from Fastlane?
I just want to touch on, you see the WWE, they do that where they have the two contenders, one contender for the women's championship and the women's champ. Sometimes you see the WWE do that where they pair them together, and it creates a little animosity when they're going for a tag team belt, or something goes awry or something like that. Like, you've seen that happen, so
yeah,
that's kind of a a recycled storyline, like to create like you said, like a little bit of animosity and a little more drive towards what's going to be the main event at WrestleMania for night one, like you're saying. But I just want to say that Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, like, these two women are stars, and like when you watch them fight, when you watch them perform, like, you could really tell they get into their roles, and they're really good. Like their technical skills are just, I don't know, they're off the charts. I'm really impressed with them, and I can't wait for that to be the main event for night one. Like, I'm stoked for that. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, and then going back a little bit to what you were saying, where they used to do it, to pair them up leading into a big main event. I know they used to do that, but now WWE just like pairs up so many people, and it just doesn't make sense. So when you're doing it all the time, it's not special anymore, right? But that aside, I'm definitely still, I'm looking forward to their match. I think we talked about it after Fastlane. Fastlane was a forgettable pay-per-view. I think all around people can say that. And with that behind us, we might dive a little bit back into Fastlane, but with that behind us, I'm really legitimately excited for every match at WrestleMania, and that includes Bad Bunny versus The Miz. I know we've talked about Bad Bunny a couple times now on our podcast, where I just didn't understand who he was and what, the attraction and everything, but it's something special that they're doing with The Miz. I'm actually shocked that they're doing a singles match rather than a tag team match. I know Damian Priest and John Morrison are in each other in the opposite corners of their partners, but that's surprising, especially with a performer that's not a competitor, with Bad Bunny, to do a singles match rather than a tag match.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen there. But give kudos to Bad Bunny. I feel like the thing, like, I've seen some things that Randy Orton said online on Twitter about like how much respect Bad Bunny has for these wrestlers and what they do for a living, and it looks like, and it shows when he's on Raw and when he has his feud with The Miz, it shows that Bad Bunny, he wants to be a part of this. He clearly wants to be a part of this, and the WWE wants him to be a part of this. So you know what, give your hat off to him. It's going to be interesting to see how he's going to fight. And I know a lot of the times, WWE, if there's an amateur fighter, somebody who's not used to, the experience of being a professional wrestler, they try to hide that and try to mask it and make it shorter, make a fight shorter, make it end in a DQ or something like that. But we've already seen him take to the top ropes at the Royal Rumble. So I'm excited to see what else he's going to pull out. And you know what, if he pulls out another guitar, hopefully it's a no DQ match or something like that. So
dude, that weapon was amazing to see back in the day. Now you have Elias, who's the musician, but he's never used, he doesn't use it against anybody, and you're using other guys to use the guitar rather than a chair, kendo stick, or whatnot. I don't know. Well, he is a performer, Bad Bunny, so it kind of makes sense. But he doesn't use a guitar. He's all. It would have been even better if he threw Miz into a DJ booth or something like that. But we'll see what happens at WrestleMania there. Then we have, going back to Fastlane, we had the theatrical match, like, with Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton, where she's looking up, and then all the 4 or 5 sets of lights come down close to Randy Orton. I'm pretty sure it was a taped match. I don't think it was live, which is it's very interesting. And we talked about it, where I'm enjoying that, and I'm enjoying some of the theatrical things that they're doing with the fireballs, and even the Money in the Bank last year. I don't know if you watched it, where they filmed the whole thing at WWE's offices, and then on top of the roof of the offices were the ladders to climb up and grab the briefcases. So there's a lot of these things that they're doing now because there's no audience, so it's a little bit easier to record these extra stunts and extra theatrics, which I'm all for. So they had a lot of that, the fireballs going into Randy Orton's face, the lights coming down, and then the hand of the Fiend coming up, and then that huge inferno shooting out of the hole in the ring. And the Fiend's back. He's more burnt than ever. He's looking slimy and fleshy and bloody. It was cool to see. It's going to look cool as a video game character and a wrestling figure as well. And now that sets up their match for WrestleMania. Again, nothing shocking there. We knew that was going to happen, but I'm looking forward to that. And the only thing that's a little bit that I'm still confused about, we talked about how Daniel Bryan was everybody saw this on the WWE Network, where they're saying that Daniel Bryan's being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. So during our predictions, I ended up picking Daniel Bryan to win against Roman Reigns, even though, if I really think about it, there wasn't really going to be a chance that Roman was going to drop the belt the show before WrestleMania. But just based on that leak or that air, whatever happened on the WWE Network with Bryan, they're saying that he's being inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's interesting to see if he gets added to the match with Edge. And I don't know. Do you still have that tweet that I sent to you earlier with the 3 guys?
Not pulled up now, but I do recall you sending it.
So for those that are watching and listening, the tweet was basically recalling the three men that are in this program. Edge in 2011 was forced to retire. Daniel Bryan in 2016 was forced to retire, and because of neck injuries. And then Roman Reigns in 2018 was forced to leave because of his leukemia. And now we're in 2021, and all 3 men are back, and all 3 men are competing at the highest of their ability in the 3 of them together in this program. Like, I would love to see Spear versus Spear, Roman versus Edge 1-on-1, but at the same time, and I think, Bill, you're going to disagree with me, but I would love to see Daniel Bryan added to that too. And I'm mostly thinking that because of the history, because of everybody being forced to leave the ring, and then now everybody's back. I mean, it's a really cool story. And if Daniel Bryan is really seriously considering retirement and possibly going into the Hall of Fame, which I think is very early if it is this year, I would still love to see him in that main event match at WrestleMania. What do you think about that?
Sure, why not? Why don't you add Daniel Bryan in there, make it a triple threat? Is that going to be the main event of night 2?
Most likely. I don't see anything else being the main event at this point. I mean, you have Lashley and McIntyre and Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair on night 1. So right away, one of those is the main event and one is not. Hopefully it's the ladies. And then night 2, I'm not sure where Asuka and Rhea Ripley are going to end up. Most likely it's going to be night 2, but that will never, like, all due respect to the two women, will not oversee Roman Reigns and Edge in the main event. So I don't see anything other than Roman Reigns and Edge, possibly with Daniel Bryan being the main event. Anything else?
Yeah, it looks like it's confirmed night 2 for Ripley and Asuka. So I agree with you there. I mean, they're probably gonna have the women's title match, on night 1 main event, and then Roman Reigns, Edge, and potentially Daniel Bryan on night 2 main event. So, I was listening to Edge talk about why he came back, and he was talking about he wanted to get into the WWE of this era where he hadn't wrestled with a lot of the younger guys here, and
yeah.
That speaks volumes of Edge's character. He almost, I guess maybe he had like FOMO, like fear of missing out, because you see all this great talent. And I think this, Roman Reigns is one of my favorites right now in this current WWE era, and Daniel Bryan has been nothing but spectacular. So I'm hoping that this match is gonna exceed expectations and gonna go above and beyond. And if they do add Daniel Bryan to make it a triple threat, I mean, I think it's gonna be a top-notch match. And hopefully, I'm rooting for Edge to win. I'm rooting for, even though Roman Reigns is one of my favorites right now, I'm rooting for Edge to win. I want him to do one last hurrah, and we don't know what his career is going to hold further on. So, like you said, spear versus spear would be nice, but add in Daniel Bryan in there, and I think that's going to be a match to remember.
I'm thinking. I don't want to do predictions now. Obviously, we're going to do predictions a little bit later on, but I'm probably thinking the same thing where Edge wins it. Originally, if it was 1-on-1, I thought Roman Reigns was going to take this match, and Sasha Banks was going to win against Belair, which meant that both Royal Rumble winners were losers in their main events. Now, if you're adding Daniel Bryan, Edge can pin Bryan, and Roman Reigns still looks strong, and they can still continue a 1-on-1 singles competition. Or Roman goes away for a little bit, takes a little bit of a break, and you have Edge versus Daniel Bryan for a little bit until Roman's ready to come back. So, like you said, Edge wants to compete with some of these younger guys, have these top-notch fantasy type matchups that all these diehard fans have been waiting for and wishing for. He's back. Daniel Bryan's back. Roman Reigns is back. All these guys can have tons of these programs. Edge can, roll with Rollins, Cesaro. Like there's just an endless slew of competitors that Edge can fight with later on until he's ready to really hang up the boots for good, leave on his own terms. So with that said, I'm hoping you're okay with this. I just want to go. We don't have to talk about everything, but since it is a Fastlane's results, let's go through some of the results. Ali versus Matt Riddle. Both of us picked Riddle. Riddle defended successfully. I don't know if you want to touch on it, or do you want to? I know you love Matt Riddle.
Yeah, I like his character. He plays up the role of the dude bro. So it's funny to see him with a scooter riding around. And I think on this past Raw, he was talking to Braun Strowman, if I'm not mistaken, and I think there was something to do with his scooter where he threw it on the ground or something. Riddle seemed mad, but again, another guy who I think is deserving of a push, and I'm happy to see him continue on with the title belt there.
Yeah. I fully agree with you there, and it's good that Lashley dropped it to Riddle. Now Riddle can take it and elevate the mid card title. Shinsuke Nakamura and Rollins, again a transitional match to Rollins and Cesaro, which is looking like the expected match for WrestleMania. Rollins took this one. It was a good match. There was a lot of forced back and forth, and I don't know. I wasn't as into it as I thought I was going to be. Both of us picked Rollins on that one. Bill, we talked about the Fiend returning, and Alexa Bliss took the win against Randy Orton in a very risque pose or risque pin where it caused a lot of funny memes afterwards. So I took the win on that because I picked Alexa Bliss, and that's actually her first win, singles win in quite some time. I think a couple of years since she's had a singles win on a pay-per-view. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, we both picked Drew McIntyre to win that one. That was pretty good. They took most of the fight in the crowd. There's a couple moments where monitors exploded. I don't know about you, but I've thrown monitors in the dumpster and whatnot, and I've never seen them explode the way they do on WWE television. But I just had to throw that in there. And then we touched on the other couple matches. Braun Strowman beats Elias when he was scheduled to face Shane McMahon. I knew that was not going to happen. Shane faked the injury, and it's just going to lead to their match at WrestleMania. Sasha Banks and Belair, they lost the match to Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. I'm hoping the women's tag team titles are defended in a multi team match at WrestleMania. That'll be interesting. And Apollo Crews drops the match to Big E, so Big E successfully defends. You picked Big E, I picked Apollo Crews. And then, of course, we split on Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. Realistically, I should have picked Roman Reigns so I could have won our predictions, but we ended up tying. And I don't know, Daniel Bryan did tap. Or no, sorry, Roman Reigns did tap to Daniel Bryan, but the referee was not around. Edge, the special enforcer, was knocked down. So kind of tying back to the beginning, what you mentioned as we started the Fastlane results, it was cool to see Edge at ringside. I think I would have liked it a little bit more but I guess you can't really undress a referee anymore on TV. But like if he ripped off the shirt, put it on, I think that would have been pretty cool to see. Kind of like Mike Tyson when he just ripped off his DX shirt to reveal Stone Cold, but he was the special enforcer and he counted the pin back at WrestleMania 14. And speaking of all that, I'll let you chime in a little bit, but I think this is also a tradition. And speaking of Mike Tyson and DX, here's another shirt that my wife made. It has all my favorite factions, and I don't know if you can see it there, the club as well. So I was just wearing it because thinking about Mike Tyson and the enforcer and the whole DX thing. I see you're wearing a black shirt too. Toronto Maple. Is it black or is it just the lighting?
It's a black shirt and it has a gold Toronto Maple Leafs logo on it. I try to put all my sports memorabilia on when we're doing these little things. So give us a view on YouTube. We're live on YouTube. We're going to be posting this as well. But Dan, just want to touch back on what you said. I know we're going to end our segment here soon, but because we're going to gear up for, WrestleMania, we're going to be talking about that throughout the coming weeks. But it's funny because we're talking about Fastlane and we're saying how, Fastlane was an okay pay-per-view. I mean, you didn't think it was great and I thought it was okay, but damn, did we have a lot to talk about. And I can sit here and talk forever because I still didn't even touch on The Fiend and Orton and Strowman and Shane McMahon, but you know what? We'll save that for our next coming pod. And, hopefully this bonus will, treat the fans to a little extra inside scoop on what our opinions were on this pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just I don't know if it's the content from WWE. Yeah, like we said, it's okay, but it's just when me and you get together, we always find something to talk about, even if it's utter garbage. But I wouldn't say it was utter garbage. This one, there has been worse. For those that are listening, Bill is motioning his hand, so on camera. I just, yeah, I don't know. We have rambled on for who knows half an hour or so now. So we didn't want to deep dive into everything. We just wanted something special for our listeners. We'll be doing this from time to time, not all the time, but from, here and there when we feel that there's a lot of content. Our wrestling segments are always jam-packed, so we thought to give something a little bit extra to our viewers and our listeners. So hope you guys enjoyed our special episode, this bonus episode. We're going to have a couple more bonus episodes coming up in the weeks to come where you'll get to know us. I know if you've listened to Rip Impact's interview, we did the Spry 7 with Rip Impact where we asked him a series of questions. So I'm going to be asking Bill some questions in a future episode, and he's going to be asking me, just so you guys can kind of learn a little bit more about us, our favorite snacks or our favorite TV shows and whatnot. So look out for those special episodes as well. And we didn't talk about it, so I'll just touch on it before we end our special episode, unless you have a little bit more to say. But there's a video game that actually just came out, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. It is RetroMania Wrestling, and it's a sequel to WrestleFest, which I loved growing up. It's an arcade style game, and it actually has several, I don't know off the top of my head, but several former WWE superstars, including Matt Cardona, who was formerly Zack Ryder, and Brian Myers, who was formerly Kurt Hawkins. It also actually has Johnny Retro, and Johnny Retro used to be Johnny Nitro, who is now John Morrison. So I'm not sure how they got around to having him in the game, but that's pretty cool. Tommy Dreamer and the Blue World Order are also in the video game. So a special shout out to Retrosoft Studio. That game was released on Xbox Tuesday the 23rd. And the PlayStation, I believe, is going to be released in the future. The PlayStation 4 version of the game. The Nintendo Switch version is being released on March the 30th, so very soon. And it's just, if you like wrestling games, this is a retro. It's an arcade type game, really fun. They have tons of cool arenas. And you guys might have recognized the voice that opened up our podcast. So thank you very much. Let me just pull up the information here. We actually had the announcer of the retro wrestling game open up our podcast. His name is Josh Shernoff, and we want to thank Josh. He hosts a radio or a podcast with the Blue Meanie, so former WWE superstar, and he's also in the video game as well. So we have it's a really cool connection. You could check out Josh Shernoff on Twitter at So Says Shernoff, and also on their podcast Twitter account at Shernoff Show. And there's also at Mind of the Meanie. The Mind of the Meanie podcast show is the show with the Blue Meanie. So check all of that out. We'll have all of the details to his podcast, his social media, everything in our YouTube and our audio podcast description. We'll post all the links down below. Again, thank you very much, Josh Shernoff. He's the ring announcer of the video game that we were just talking about, where his voice is heard each and every announcement of the wrestlers. So check out the video game. Check out Josh on social media. Bill, anything else to say as we send off our bonus episode here?
Just that, we had set out 10 minutes to talk about Fastlane, but we ended up going, I think, 30 minutes or something like that. So, you know what, if you guys like the content, continue to follow us across the board at By the Buzzer Pod. And we're happy to answer any feedback you guys have. And we're happy to take into account anything you guys have, any constructive criticisms, because we're just trying to build our brand, our reputation. So Anything, any feedback's welcome, and hope to hear from you guys soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bill, for that ending. Thanks again, Josh, for the intro. And guys, check out RetroMania Wrestling, the video game. It's available now. Also, thank you to, we normally plug Macarons by Laura Maria. So check out Macarons by Laura Maria on Instagram and Facebook for sweet, delicious macarons if you're in the Barrie and Simcoe area. She's a local baker. Bill, thank you very much for setting some time aside for this special episode of Saved by the Buzzer. And guys, keep giving us those thumbs up, the likes, subscribe to our channel, drop us a 5-star review all over the place on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're available everywhere. Check us out and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And like Bill said, all over the place on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Guys, thanks again very much. I'm Dan. He's Bill. We'll see you guys next time.